Welcome to What's Going On, the weekly podcast and videocast of First United Methodist Church in Yankton, South Dakota. Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of What's Going On. I'm Pastor Katie here at First United Methodist, and I'm glad you could join me for this episode. So we are into the month of November, which if you read my Remind article that came out in your mail this month, you will know that I have a very soft spot for the month of November. I think it gets overlooked and overshadowed by the bookend holidays on either side of it. And even though it has its own holidays, I think they don't get their due in the same way. And so I really do love November. And I'm grateful for this past Sunday in our All Saints worship. And there were some really beautiful moments. And it's one of the reasons that I love when we gather as a church and worship together and share with one another. But it was one of the gifts of this church is one of the practices that they have for All Saints worship. And that is not only honoring those who have died and naming those who have died in the last year, but opening it up wider to invite anybody who would like to bring flowers as a sign of honoring loved ones that have gone before for them. And I find it to be one of the most meaningful worship experiences throughout the year. So there's different worship services that I really love. And I really love any of our worship services that have a ritual piece to it that we do year after year. I think sometimes people argue that rituals and liturgy and things can be boring and monotonous, so you do it all the time. But I think over time, some of these things become really meaningful and they become something that can help us process or just like touch points throughout the year. So my favorite services are like Christmas Eve service. I mean, how many of you would be so upset if we didn't have candle lighting or singing Silent Night in the Dark lit by candles, whether real or electric? That's something we do every year, but it's something that we look forward to, right? There is something about it that in that moment, it really hits home of this is Christmas Eve, this is Christmas worship, we are part of this story once again. I think of Ash Wednesday as another one that really has an experiential piece to it that I really love with the putting the ashes on the forehead. Again, it's not something, novel that we do all the time. It's, we say those same words, we do that same action each year, but that ritual ushers us into that season of Lent and that season of preparation. And so there's something really special about those moments, those certain every year rituals that we have, and All Saints is one of those. And I really look forward to being a witness to those moments of people coming forward with their flowers and adding their flowers and really their loved ones, honoring them, and having these bouquets become this visual, physical representation of the cloud of witnesses, the fellowship of the saints. And also a really tangible reminder that the grief that we carry, we do not carry grief alone, right? That we all carry grief, we all carry loss with us. And there's people around us who want to understand what we're going through, are there for us, and that we can be there for them. I think watching people put flowers in, you don't necessarily realize what they're holding until you see that moment. I remember being very moved that someone almost had a whole bouquet of flowers themselves that they were bringing because there were so many people that they were carrying grief for in the loss of their loved ones. And again, it's just this really cool reminder uh, of a tangible thing, a tangible symbol of something sort of intangible. And so I really find All Saints to be a very special service that we have in the life of the church, and one that I look forward to each year. And I'm grateful again for the practice of this church and how it has expanded my understanding and expanded my capacity, I think, for embracing and witnessing what God is up to in people. Because I think so often we forget that there's so much about other people that we don't know, that we can't see what they're going through. And so having just a little glimpse of, one aspect of their life, which is, the grief and loss that we all carry, and a reminder that we all carry grief and loss, even though those are things that feel so solitary, and that the way that we experience those things are unique to us, but we are not unique in experiencing those things. Does that make sense? And so I'm still kind of sitting in that reflective mode from that service. And then I don't know if you know this, but after that service, if you wonder what happens to those flowers actually get divided up and taken to our church members that are out at Sister James or Majestic Bluffs or are homebound in some way, as a blessing to them. And so they get reused and reimagined, and they get new life in that way. And so I think that's a really cool thing. There's some ladies in the church that do that work, and I'm grateful to them for extending the blessing of those flowers beyond a Sunday morning service. So um, that is the first holiday of November that we get to be a part of. The next coming up is Veterans Day, which is not a church holiday, but it is certainly not outside of the realm of church, because we have people within our church community that are veterans, who have sacrificed on behalf of others, who have gone places that many of us will never go, and seen things and do things that we prayerfully hope that many of us never have to see or do. And so we honor that, and we honor that willingness. And it really has parallels with the Christian life, right? That there's no greater love than this, for a man to lay down his life for his brother, right? Like there's a self-sacrificial piece to any veteran that who serves, who is willing to give of themselves for a greater good. And that's something that I think falls right in line with who we are as Christians and our calling, that we love our neighbors as ourselves, and that we are willing to do what it takes to help keep people safe and to keep people protected and free. And uh, so we do recognize and celebrate the people in our community, in our church, who that has been a part of their life, and the way that they have been serving others. And so again, that it's not an official church holiday, but it does overlap because people that we care about are veterans, and we are grateful for them and grateful for what they have been willing to do. And then there is Thanksgiving, which originally was celebrated by the Pilgrims, who were religious refugees, actually. The Pilgrims came to the United States before it was the United States, because of religious persecution in England, because they did not want to be a part of the Church of England. They wanted to be able to worship the way that they wanted to worship, which was not a part of the state church. And so to escape persecution, to escape unfair laws in their mind that didn't allow them to then have access to civil liberties because of their choice to be dissenters in the religious world, that they came here to start a new life and to be able to practice their Christianity openly and freely. And it is that initial relationship between the settlers and the Native Americans that started with Thanksgiving. And that, Thanksgiving didn't actually become an official like government holiday until Abraham Lincoln. So that was a couple hundred years after, what you would imagine the first Thanksgiving to be. But I think it has grown beyond just kind of a harvest festival, into a recognition of our abundance in God. And sometimes it may feel like we don't have a lot of abundance in God. But what I think about when I think about Thanksgiving is there really is so much that we can be thankful for, that gratitude is is something and a powerful thing. We did a sermon series a while ago on gratitude, or at least I did a sermon in November around gratitude, and how I think gratitude more than almost anything else, not only does it have positive effects for you spiritually and emotionally, but also physically, because the more that we practice gratitude, the more that we verbally or written down or acknowledge the things that we are grateful for, the more that we are spending time focusing on all the things that we do have, it's less time, less energy, less attention on focusing on the things that we don't or that we wish we had. Um, and and the reality is, I think any of us that are watching this, which means that you have access to a computer and the internet, we are people with much, much, much to be grateful for. And so I do think that Thanksgiving and uh, sometimes we miss the point of it. I think sometimes we can miss the point of Thanksgiving when we're really just focused solely on the food or being grateful for that one meal, which I mean, I am. I think fall foods are probably the best food profile, in my opinion. Give me stuffing and mashed potatoes and gravy and pumpkin pie any day of the week. I mean, I love fall food, and so I am genuinely grateful for that particular meal. But I think it's so much bigger than that. I think we miss the point when we spend our Thanksgiving looking at Black Friday and thinking about all the things we want to get or need to get, or kind of buying into this idea that, again, Thanksgiving is a pit stop on the way to Christmas, and Christmas is really about presents. I'm sure that none of you fall into that trap, but I think many of us really do. Um, and so, really I think it's so important that we spend time, especially in the month of November, pausing, not only being grateful for and mindful of all that has had to happen to get us where we are, recognizing that we could not exist here today by our own doing, that our life could not be what it is um, because we made it that way, that all of us are a product of so many people that have had an influence here, there, and everywhere to get us to where we are and the life that we have. And to just be grateful and humbled by that, I think is such an important posture and attitude as we head into not only Thanksgiving, but also into the Advent and Christmas seasons, that we remember the broader story, that we remember the broader community and world in which we are a part, that we play a role in something bigger than us. And one, to be grateful for all the people who have played those roles leading up to this point that helped us become, Christians and to know of Christ, and all the people that have sacrificed and made it possible for us to be who we are and where we are. But then also let that be motivation as we move into a season of retelling the Christ story once again, that it is our turn to do those things, that we again are part of carrying on these traditions and these stories and these things that really matter, and that it is our role and our job to be preparing the way for the next generations and future generations, that what we do today matters for what can happen in the future. And I think, again, we are best prepared for that when we take seriously the practice of gratitude. And so I really believe November is a purposeful um, and crucial month that often again doesn't get its due because we're so anxious to get to Christmas, or we're so anxious to get to shopping, or we're so anxious to get to something that we don't take time to be grateful for what we have in front of us and for the rhythm that is here that is helpful to us. And so that's kind of where my mind was when I was writing that remind piece, and where my mind continues to be. And I have in front of me the United Women in Faith this week did their World Thanks Offering, and then they had us make these little boxes that you can put money in, and I have it sitting on my desk, and the first thing it says is give thanks, and I've been putting coins in it when it catches my eye. But again, how important gratitude is to who we are, how important it is for us to name those things, so that, again, we don't get caught up in the world telling us you need to get this stuff, you need to have the perfect house, you need to do this, you need to get these things, you need to, be at that sale, you need to buy all of this stuff, otherwise you're going to be a bad parent, a bad grandparent, a bad aunt, a bad whatever. Like we're going to be bombarded with all of that stuff, but to instead learn to instill in our own hearts gratitude and peace, and then be able to pass that on to the next generations. Because I think there are a lot of people that do not know peace, that do not have within their hearts a sense of all that they have, all that has been given to them, the intentionality with which their life, uh, you know, has been made possible. And so they try to fill all that with other things, with stuff, this feeling of, do I really matter? Does my life really matter? Nobody really cares about me. And so I need to find a way to make myself matter. I need to find a way to make people like me. And that's when, and when we listen to those voices, that's when we get into trouble and we start competing and we start looking around and wondering, if I don't fall in line, if I don't do this thing better, I'm not going to matter anymore. And again, I really think at the root of that is a belief that they don't have what they need. And we can think that because we're constantly told that. But the antidote to that is starting to think about, what do I have in my life? What am I grateful for? And so, anyway, I think that's really important. I want to talk about a few things. We have some things sort of shifting as we are looking and planning into the holiday season. The first thing I want you to know is that Advent starts in November this year. We always have 4 Sundays in Advent prior to Christmas. Sometimes the 4th Sunday of Advent is Christmas Eve, which is the years that Advent starts really late. This year, however, Advent starts really early in November, which means it is Thanksgiving week that we have to decorate the church. And we have the most beautiful church during the Christmas season, and it takes a lot of work to get it like that. And so you will see in the remind, and you will see that the Saturday after Thanksgiving, prior to Sunday, at 10 o'clock, we're going to have a big to-do for decorating. But I also know that many of you travel for Thanksgiving, and that timing isn't going to work for you. And so what I'm going to propose is that if you would like to help, if you have a decorating skill, which I know some of you really do, and you have time earlier in the week to maybe put up one Christmas tree or to do something, come in and we will, give you a project to work on. And then we'll use Saturday as our kind of get everything else done. So those of you who can come Saturday morning, please do. Please don't leave the decorating to me, because this is not my skill set. I can do a lot of things, but decorating a Christmas tree is not at the top of that list, at least not if you want it to look nice. I'm not trying to get out of things. I will be there, and I am a worker bee at best. I'm not the decision maker when it comes to what things look good. And so I need those of you with that skill set, with that gifting, to make yourselves available that week sometime. Just let me know. Give us a heads up saying, hey, I think I could make some time on this day. Would you have a project for me? And we'll get you a project. And then, over the course of the week, we can get the church decorated so that by Sunday, when everyone comes for worship, it will look the way it needs to look. And so that's the first thing I want to put out. Second, I put out in the newsletter about a Christmas choir that we were originally going to do at the end of November, but we've decided to move that back into December, the second week of Advent. And I want to talk a little bit about this. Um, I had a member of the church come to me with a dream. And I love it when people come to me with a dream. I kid you not, it's one of my great joys in life to hear like, this is something I would really love to see. And what could we make something like this possible? And I will tell you that 9 times out of 10, almost 10 times out of 10, I will do everything in my power to make those things possible. Sometimes it just isn't something that I'm able to do. And it's not that I don't want to, it's just, out of my realm of what I can do. But this one, I felt like, I bet we can do this. And so their dream was for in Christmas to, for one time only, have this full-fledged choir to be able to share in one song that would be a blessing to our radio audience, that would be a blessing to our live stream, to the people in the church. And then I'm also hoping, because the Dakotas Conference is also looking for really great um, musical things, and I know that Jill is planning to also have some of our handbells be a part of it as well. I would love to be able to submit this for the Very Dakotas Christmas. And so what we would like is anybody that has the ability to carry a tune, period, to consider for one morning only, to come and be a part of this choir. And let's fill the front of the church for one song, to really be a blessing as we are in the Advent season. And so the song is going to be the first Noel, so it's a pretty familiar song. And I'm going to be reaching out to people that I know can carry a tune. So this is not necessarily like you are not being recruited to be in the choir forever and ever. Although if you are reminded that you love singing, I'm sure the choir would love to have you. Um, but it's just an opportunity for us to um, do something kind of special. And this person had this dream. They saw it from a different church that did something like this. And again, I mean, wouldn't it be kind of fun to have the choir be so large that it's larger than the people in the pews? I mean, wouldn't that be kind of cool? So anyway, I am asking you from the bottom of my heart, would you consider helping making this dream come true? From someone in the church who loves our church and would love to see something like this happen, would you consider for one Sunday being a part of making this happen? If you have friends that you know that love singing and they might be available that morning, invite them. This is not just, you have to be a member of our church in order to sing with us. That's not how we are. Um, but we'd really love to just have a full choir sound, full. And I tell you, I was at Church of the Resurrection earlier this fall, and that night, one of the nights, they had a concert with their full choir. They have an orchestra, and then they have a gospel choir, and they all shared things. But when that full choir, and then their choir is like 100, a couple hundred people. I mean, it's massive. But when that choir and that sound hits you, oh, I mean, it was right in my soul, honestly. Like, and I would love to be able to offer that during Advent this year. And so, would you consider being a part of that? So that's going to happen in December. So be watching for that. Pulling out your hymnal and practicing the first Noel. And if you're an alto or a tenor or a bass, working on those parts a little bit. And if you would like help with that, please let me know or talk to Jill Wilson. She's going to be the director for that. And then the second Sunday of Advent is going to be our children. The children and youth are going to be doing that service. And in the past few years, that's been kind of the program. This year, the program is really kind of integrated into the service. And so I'm really excited. I know that they're going to be working hard on it. It's going to be less of like a play and more, I think, more traditional Christmas program this year. We're kind of really throwing it back to our roots and telling the story and singing the hymns and having the kids be a real part of it in that way. And so We want you to come that day and be a part of it. We're working on what we're going to do for after that, um, as far as if we're going to have a potluck or something like that. Um, we are the Christmas, A Taste of Christmas Heritage is actually, they've been praying over and discerning that they would like to move their event off of Christmas and into a different time of year and to really broaden the event beyond just like a Christmas potluck. And I loved the event so much last year, but I think they've got bigger dreams and really wanting to involve more of the community and lifting up more of the cultures that are in our community and helping to bring awareness to that. And so really partnering with Connecting Cultures and so they've got some big dreams. And so they have asked to kind of come off of the Christmas time because we've already got things happening and to make that its kind of own event at a different time. And so again, I'll be working with 605 leaders to see, if we're going to do something after worship that day or not. But I want you to come, and it's really important to me. Um, and I've been really proud of our church. But it's really important to me that the whole church shows up for our children and youth. I know that there's people that struggle on the days where the kids are leading worship because maybe they have a harder time hearing, or, it's not as cohesive. You're not getting the sermon from the pastor. Although I would argue that when the kids are telling the story, I think it's a pretty powerful thing. But I think it's so important as a church that we show up for our children and youth. Even if you can't hear what they're saying, they see that you're there. They see that you think that what they're doing matters. And I will also argue that children and youth see when you don't show up, that they see when what they're doing is not supported by the church. And so I think it's incredibly important that our church sees what the children and youth are doing as important and valid and real worship, because it is. I've been very intentional to put it in the worship time because I don't think it should be a performance. I think that they are leading worship in a different way, in a way that is engaging for them. Because let's be honest, they sit through 51 weeks of the year where worship is not primarily targeted to them. They get a children's sermon and a little bit of time, but otherwise they are in worship that is targeted to more of the adults. And so for one Sunday of the year, let's have worship that's for them, targeted for them, led by them, and that we support them in that way. And so I say that I'm really proud of our church because I believe this very strongly. And I do the same thing for Vacation Bible School worship because I believe, again, that it is important for us as the community of the church to show up for our church people, and that includes our children. And if you see children when they are leading worship, that worship is optional, you are saying that what they are doing is somehow less than, and they pick up on that. And then they start to think, church really isn't for me. And that would be terrible to me. And for our VBS worships, the Methodists have shown up in some pretty powerful ways. And I know that for some of you, when it's outside and in a park, there's logistical issues, and that's a different thing. But consider giving of an hour of your time to show up for a child, to show up for a youth person. Even if it's not for you, even if you walk away and it's like, I didn't learn anything new today. I wasn't challenged in any way, or I couldn't even hear anything today. But what you are doing is giving your time to them and helping to solidify in them a belief that the church cares about me and that there are people in this world beyond my parents, beyond my family, that think I matter. And I would argue that that's a pretty big role that we have as a church. And I'm on a soapbox now, so I might as well keep going. You promised, if these children were baptized in the church, you promised to help raise them in the faith. You promised to be the village for them. You promised to support that family, to support those children. And so I really see it as living out our baptismal vows to show up. And so I hope that you do. And I hope that you do it with bells on. And it's an appropriate time to do it with bells because I don't think people will look at you that strange if you had some jingle bells on your shoes. You don't really have to do that. But do you see how much that matters to me? I've been in youth ministry, I've been in camping ministry, I'm a parent myself. And the thing that I can tell you over and over again are the kids who church becomes a part of their life and faith becomes a part of their life. A big reason for that is that they were part of churches that made them feel like they mattered, where they felt seen and heard and valued. You have a role to play in that. And so I would encourage you to take that seriously and to invite your friends to take that seriously and to remember not every service is just for you. It's for the whole community. And so that's what I think about that. So that's happening. We've got Blue Christmas happening this year. It will be at the Yankton UCC Congregational Church. We are also going to be joined by Trinity Lutheran this year, and maybe some others. We're opening it up at Ministerial, so maybe some other churches will want to jump in on this as well. Blue Christmas is a time of, again, acknowledging that holidays are hard when you're grieving, and so it's a very special service and very creative service as well. There's a lot to be said for that, and so be on the lookout for that. And then, yeah, Christmas, which, man, that's coming faster than I'm really ready for. Speaking of some other things, my Tuesday class just wrapped up their series on 1 Corinthians. They're taking a break next week, and then they're going to be doing 2 weeks led by Bob Thuy. Bob did a talk while he was at Walk to Emmaus, and you heard about it when he was on the podcast. He's going to be giving that on starting Tuesday, November 18th, and then we'll kind of finish it up on the 25th. And so I'd encourage you that if you are around on Tuesday at lunch, to come and check that out and support Bob. And God has really been at work in his life and in his heart. And I think his experiences with Walk to Emmaus have really helped him to grow deeper, even more so than he already was, which he's an incredibly wise person, an incredibly spiritual person. I learn a lot from him. And so I'm excited to give him the reins for a couple of weeks. And then the Tuesday lunch class will start in December with an Advent series. And so if you're looking for a study to do, we'd invite you to come to that. If you are like, Pastor Katie, I can't do Sunday mornings, it's too early. Tuesdays I work. I'd really love to have a small group that works in my schedule. Please tell me, and then tell me what works in your schedule, and I'd be happy to try to figure something out. We've got some options now because we have the Amplify Media that is a free subscription for anybody. So we can do some where you're at home on the computer, on your phone, and we're watching the video and then discussing it. We've done that in the past. I'd be happy to facilitate something like that or get something like that organized. But oftentimes I just don't know what works in people's schedules. Everyone sort of has a different kind of schedule. So if I know that I have some interest, but the timing is off, let me know. I cannot read your mind. And so just want you to be aware of those things. And yeah, I feel like that's probably good for listening to me talk today. I hope that you're doing well. I hope that you are staying warm as the seasons get a little bit colder. And I hope to see you in worship this Sunday, where we're going to start talking about 3 essential prayers, which again, I think for me, it goes along with our theme of November and preparing ourselves. And so we're going to be talking about the first essential prayer, which is help. Until next time, God bless. Thank you for joining us for this episode of What's Going On, a video and audio podcast of First United Methodist Church in Yankton, South Dakota. We'd love to have you join us for worship on Sundays at 10 a.m., either in person or via our live stream, which can be found at our website, www.firstumcyankton.org, or by searching First UMC Yankton on YouTube.